Hank, Chester, Kid, Edgar, and Buster are brawlers that fell pretty quickly. So what caused this to happen? Well, we'll be diving in, covering them from the oldest to the most recent brawler. Starting with Edgar, released for free to everyone on December 19, 2020. And oh boy, Edgar was good. Since his Let's Fight gadget used to charge his super all the way up in 3 seconds, and since there wasn't that much brawlers that could counter Edgar was pretty good in this meta. And on top of his Let's Fight gadget, his supercharge rate used to be actually a bit more higher. Also, his hard landing star power does help him get kills with his 1350 damage landing, so Edgar was a very broken option. Now, to fix this issue, they ended up nerfing his gadget on January 14, 2021. Now, it will charge his super 525% faster instead of 700%, and they also increased the duration of it to 4 seconds from 3, so it no longer completely charges super, and you'll have to wait a bit. But later on the 18th, they released the second star power Fist Cups, where he healed 25% more with his main attack. Now this star power does help out, and gives more variety in game modes, so this did really benefit him. But not for long, since the next few months he got nerfed very hard. On February 8th, the number of hits he needs to charge his super went up from 10 to 12, which affected his rate with supercharging. And on March 15th, his health got a 7% nerf. And you may be wondering, how is Edgar's state all after these nerfs? Well, these nerfs affected him in many ways. He can't charge his super easily, and he's way more vulnerable. So all the new brawlers released like Stu can easily counter him, which made him fall to the C tier. And this trend continued as years passed by, while he received his hardcore gadget, which gives him a shield that decays in health, which is very useful. But unfortunately, he keeps going way more down, as his counter grows slowly and slowly, until he's in the F tier, one of the worst brawlers in the game. But this isn't the end of it, since he did also receive buffs in this year, because on April 25, 2023, he got 7% health back, and in December 2023, he got his hypercharge that's very good. It could be charged by his Let's Fight gadget, and when charged up, it can quickly melt enemies down. So Edgar ended up becoming more of a threat, and was actually one of the best brawlers in the game, until they made changes on how his hypercharge worked on February 27, 2022, making him not be able to charge his hypercharge with his gadget, but he was still pretty solid, since he can still guarantee kills if not dealt well. But next up is Buster, a very interesting brawler with the stats. Now Buster was released on October 31, 2022, and his damage was very insane back then, since Buster could deal 2368 damage at close range, and around 1463 at max far range at max power level, which can easily shred enemies. He also had a tanky health of 8400, which would actually be more than our current Buster if converted. Also, his super lasted 2 times the length, being 6 seconds instead of 3. But if that wasn't enough, his utility belt gadget heals all allies depending on how many people there are, including you. Each person will add up the healing by 1000, which was higher back then. Also, his Blockbuster star power also works similar, but boosting his damage by 15% per ally, which made him overall broken. Which led to Buster getting several nerfs on November 11th, where he got around a 10% health nerf and 8% damage nerf for close range. The supercharged rate was decreased slightly, and his utility belt gadget healing got halved to 500. And even though these were huge nerfs, Buster was honestly still way too good. He still deals a good amount of damage, and he still does a good job, since he was actually played very well in the World Finals that year. But if you thought he wouldn't get better after this, well, you're very wrong. On November 28th, his second star power and gadget was released. Now, his second star power was Kelver Belt, a star power which reduces damage taken by 20%, immunes him from slow, stuns, and knockbacks during his super, which was very useful and took over being the better star power. But talking about being immune to slowness, Buster's second gadget Slow-Mo Replay slow and pull enemies towards him, which is very useful in getting kills, turning to the bear gadget, and overall these second things made him very good. But all after that, the reality of what happened to Buster starts kicking in, since he received many heavy nerfs after that. On December 12th, he got 4% health nerf, 6% damage nerf at close range, and a facial animation change. Now this did affect his survivability and damage, but Supercell goes further on January 12, 2023, where he got 11% damage nerf at close range. He requires 4 hits instead of 3 for his super duration decreased from 6 seconds to 3, and his Kelfar Vest star power damage reduction was decreased from 20% to 10%, and all of these nerfs ended up absolutely destroying him. He doesn't deal that much damage anymore, and can't survive that easily. He honestly was just only good at the start because of his high stats and release. and because of that he kept going down even to the D tier until his buffs on September 5 with an 8% health increase, 8% damage increase, and a supercharge rate increase. So he only needs 3 shots for super, which actually was enough to make him very solid to the A tier, since if played right he can actually 3-shot Brawlers. Now he did fall a bit after a few nerfs after that. He received nerfs to his health and with his slow-mo replay no longer having slow, so now he's just an average Brawler in the B tier, but may bounce back once he gets a hypercharge. But even though the others were lucky, this legend was unfortunate, which is Chester. Now Chester was released on December 12, 2022. Now his luck-related mechanics are very unique, with his attack being able to cycle up to 3 builds and having random supers, but that's not the thing that made him broken or released. It was his stats for his damage and super just being way too up, like his Jawbreaker super stun lasting 2 seconds, which is quadruple the amount of Fang's roundhouse kick gadget, and it also had a faster release speed of 25% and dealt 1400 damage instead of 200, so his Jawbreaker super was the thing you need to go for, as long as you're lucky. Luckily, his first gadget existed at this time, which reroll your super, but even after not getting hit by a stun, well good luck dealing with this absurd damage, that actually later had to be nerfed by 12%, and what made his damage way worse was his star power Bellomania. This lets Chester go to 4 bells instead of 3, which occasionally means more damage, but after getting overloaded by damage, he can cycle super pretty quickly, so his absurd stun, super, and damage made him very broken, being one of the best brawlers in the game at the time. Now luckily on the 26th, his second ones weren't that broken, but useless. Both his second gadget and star powers were released that day. His second star power was Sneak Peek, a star power that literally lets you sneak peek your next super, and even though this could sound useful, you'd rather actually have that absurd damage instead. And it's a similar thing to say about his second gadget, Candy Bean, which gives Chester a temporary boost out of the random stats, either a 25% damage buff, 32% speed buff, or 420 healing per second, and these boosts are actually pretty good, but this gadget is trash since, like his super, you can get the wrong thing at the wrong moment, which is why his first gadget is very necessary. But thing is, they didn't let Chester have it too much, because on January 12, 2023, a month later after his release, he got a lot of heavy nerfs, and these are the nerfs that likely killed him. His main attack damage got nerfed by 12%, he requires 7 shots instead of 6 for his super, his Jawbreaker damage went down from 1400 to 200, his recharge rate for Jawbreaker decreased by 66%, the projectile speed of Jawbreaker went down by 25%, and finally the stun from the Jawbreaker was decreased to 1 second. And this actually ended up making the things that was making Chester good completely useless, making Chester not good anymore, which actually led him to the C tier. So you may be wondering what happened to him to the present day. Is he still good in the meta? Well, for several months he did receive 2 health buffs, one by 6% on May 15, and the other by 5% around December 12, which did help him out, but in our current meta, he did went to the D tier, mostly because the hypercharge bars started to get released during his health buff months, and since he didn't receive any, there's now way more better choices than him. But our next one is a bit more severe than Chester, which is Hank, released on June 6, 2023. Now Hank had some very strange bugs, which amplify his damage, making him broken. Like from any boost of damage, like power cubes especially, and things like 8-bit super, was the thing that was making him able to one-shot enemies in Showdown. Also his damage and health were higher at this time. But another thing that makes his one-shotting worse in Showdown is that his bubble won't be shown in bushes, and he could heal up while charging up. So Hank was basically Showy 2.0 but better. So if Hank deals this much damage, he needs speed to catch up. This is where his Gonna Blow star power comes in. A star power type speeds him up by 20% instead of 10%. When his Balloon Blast is charged over 80%, which is way better than his useless star power, that you need to be hugging a wall to get a 20% shield. But speaking of shield, his second gadget Barricade gives him a 40% shield for 3 seconds, which can be useful for his totally scaled super at the time. While his first gadget was completely useless, the slowing isn't as useful as surviving, so his bugs and his additional abilities were making him very broken. Now thankfully they did fix his inconsistent damage, not the bugs that made him broken in the next day, but on the 12th they really nerfed him and fixed tons of bugs. So let's talk about his nerfs first. His health did get a 7% nerf and a 10% damage nerf, but he did get a lot of bug fixes. All of his damage scaling issues got fixed and a voice line issue, so Hank is now debugged and can be played as a regular brawler, right? No, he's still very good after these nerfs. Even though he's now more squishier, he can still heal while charging up and surprise attack from bushes, so Hank could still survive to get hits. And unfortunately, Supercell did not like the sound of this, so on the Saturday of 27th, these set of nerfs officially killed Hank. Now, it's not like his damage or health got nerfed, but you can no longer heal during your blowing attack, which does affect his vulnerability. Some other changes are that you can no longer be invincible while charging his attack in bushes. He requires 5 shots instead of 3 for a super, and its going below star power speed went down from 20% to 10%. Now, the biggest one out of these changes was him not being able to heal during shots and not being able to be invincible while charging in a bush. It's a very huge deal since he could get pressure easily now because he did receive health nerf a bit ago also, making him go down to the F tier. But Hank did recently receive buffs where his super heals him by 50% when used, which is definitely useful for survivability, but he did receive a 7% health nerf to balance this out, so this will definitely push him up a bit. Alright, but this is the most severe one you'll see. Since Kid is a legendary, I thought they would keep him solid or okay, but oh boy, when Kid was released on December 28th, which is early access deal, well, he was game freaking like other legendaries, and it wasn't just his main attack being higher in release, but it was his super. You see, he used to be invincible during his super when lashing to the enemy, even to respawn enemies, and he could charge his super during that, but the thing that was making it worse was a bug with power keys. You see, he was so power hungry, like his first topper called Power Hungry, that not only the power cubes could double the boost from power cubes, which is from the start power, but also could increase his supercharge rate. So if you get around 5 power cubes, you can infinitely super cycle his super. And if you run into issues, you can use this absurd cardboard gadget, which makes you invincible for 5 seconds. And I bet you can't guess this, but this also had a supercharge issue because of Kid being able to charge it super passively. Well, this gadget boosted the speed of it, so its other gadget star bars that was made for his apparent support class was very useless, since why play supportive when you can play super aggressively and just be completely broken? Now, knowing this, everyone went to nerfs, but what actually happened next is that nothing really happened until January 11, 2024. So once Kid was released to public, it went chaotic for a few days, and everyone was getting free trophies with him if you can lock him. But of course, when January 11 came, Kid was heavily loaded with nerfs. His damage decreased by 20% for his main attack. He's no longer invincible, and all of his supercharge issues got fixed. Also, he could no longer get his super from his super attached to the enemy, making it kinda bad. And this made his support mechanics a bit more better, but his support things aren't the reason why he's broken. Even though it can deal good damage and heal teammates, the super just gets outclassed and countered easily by Hypersharp bars or any brawlers, so Kid can die way easily, which is the reason why he's one of the worst brawlers in the game. But recently, Supercell knows this because he received buffs and a nerf. With a single nerf, his absurd cardboard box gadget went down in duration from 5 to 3, while the buffs he received a 25% damage buff, which is slightly worse than his damage in release. His super line damage got the same increase also, and these damage buffs actually made him pretty good. But what about brawlers who make comebacks? Well, check out this video.